We are Rogue Media Sports.
Reese's Peanut Butter Cups are the greatest, but let me play devil's advocate here. Let's see. So, no, that's a good thing. That's definitely not a problem. Reese's, you did it. You stumped this charming devil.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It is day 3 of our trip out here to Oxnard, California, Cowboys Camp, Frito Nation Productions. Of course, Ed Werder alongside. And Ed, as we get ready for day 3, we've got a couple more big guests to present. One in particular, Sean Lee, and it is amazing. And we brought it up to him. The fact that Sean Lee, it still seems like it was yesterday when he was a second-round pick. Cowboys love to take injury risk or drug risk or character risk in the second round. They've done both. This guy, Sean Lee, has turned out, although he's had some injuries along the way, to make that risk pay off quite a bit. And boy, it's great to have him on today.
I think he's one of the guys that kind of gives him reassurance that this gambit that they run every year, seemingly in the second round, can often produce worthwhile results. With the retirement of Jason Witten, we know that Sean Lee is now the longest tenured starting player on offense or defense for the Cowboys. He'll tell us how remarkably fast his career has passed and what he still hopes to achieve, and give us some interesting, I think, insights and opinions into some of the key young players on what the Cowboys believe could be a very good defense, one of the best ones they've had in recent years.
Yeah, and I got to say, I think Sean, he's been part of quite a few linebacker rooms. I sense that with the addition of the rookie Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith, that this might be, in his estimation, as the most talented or have the highest ceiling of any of these linebacker groups. Now, Ed, we always want to thank our buddies at Hodges Capital. Thank you, Ed. We have had lavish accommodations, other than what you said.
You photographed them nicely on Twitter.
Yes, but they're huge. They're great partners, and
it's kind of what you would expect from the Doomsday team hotel.
Well, yes, but I'm telling you, what we have expected and continue to get from Hodges Capital, just unbelievable support. And Ed, you're a man who loves a good private equity fund, and they got 6 of them there. And Don and Craig Hodges formed Hodges Capital back in 1992, I believe it was, and they have done an unbelievable job, and they're really the best at what they do. They're right there in downtown Dallas, and one of the things I love about them is, hey, if you're high wealth, they're for you. If you're someone trying to kind of get your career going and you need somebody to look after your individual accounts and that kind of thing and grow your money, they do it.
I could be on both ends of that spectrum.
You have, just in the past year, Ed, you've kind of hit both of those things, and you do have several homes. I do think they can help you out immensely. Thank you to Hodges Capital. And Frito, if you would now play the music. And it is our day 3 out here, and excited to be a part of it. And Ed, we've had a good run out here. Had some excellent interviews and interaction. Got to visit with Jerry Jones yesterday. And Ed, I have to say that this interview today, we've been kind of waiting on it. We wanted to get to the right time for it, but I think if you're going to come out here, you might as well talk to who's probably the person who's probably become, maybe other than Dak, the biggest leader on this team.
Yeah, and I think, and we talk about the leadership void that potentially has been created by Jason Witten's unexpected retirement and then the release of Dez Bryant. Whether you think of him as a leader or you don't, he did influence players one way or the other in the locker room, and we know that he created some headlines out here with some of the things he said about specific individuals, Travis Frederick and Sean Lee being two of them, and they would seem to be two of the most unassailable members of this team, and yet Des Bryant did direct some criticism their way, and Sean stepped up and handled that, and I think demonstrated that the leadership of this team, at least as far as he's concerned, is in very capable hands going forward. So, yeah, this show, we're gonna talk about him as a former second-round pick and all he's achieved and what his expectations are for the remainder of his career, and spend some time on another second-round pick, Randy Gregory. And Lee gives his impression of Gregory too.
Yeah, very, very good, very well said, Ed, as always. And without further ado, here is Sean Snake Lee. Sean, did you feel like camp didn't truly start until you saw the Doomsday Boys on the scene?
That's exactly how I felt. I mean, waiting on you guys to actually come out here and interview me, that's something that's my main goal of camp. So, yeah, I'm excited to be with you.
You're 32 years old and the oldest member of the offensive or defensive phases of the football team. Is that hard for you to comprehend that it's gone by this fast?
Well, that's more. It's just how quickly it happened. And this is a part of your career. You understand how fleeting this thing really is. I still feel great. I still love playing with these guys. It is, when you look in your room and you got guys who are 96, 97 birthdays, 10 years younger than you, you realize you better win the championship soon because this thing's moving by pretty quick.
Yeah, you should try 1973 birthday. Now, a guy that 32, still young. Linebackers have played until Ray Lewis and some of those guys played until 36, 37. Do you even think about that? I think with Witten, it just sort of happened. He had an incredible opportunity. He probably has some more football left in him, but he decided to go ahead and walk away at age, whatever he was, 35. Do you have a goal in the back of your mind, how long you want to play, or you just know, hey, as long as I can contribute, I want to keep rolling?
I think that's number one, making sure that you can contribute. I think all of us kind of take it 1 year at a time. For me, I know I'm in my 9th year. I think, you look, a lot of guys, they go try to get to 10 years and see where they're at physically. But for me, I want to play. I love playing. I've missed a lot of time, and I feel like haven't played in games that I wanted to play in. So I love playing, and I want to keep playing for a long time.
Have you added anything to your bag of tricks in terms of learning things that work for you? I'm talking about in the off season, whether it be weight training or anything. I noticed you appear to be blowing off the yoga session today, so maybe yoga doesn't work for you.
Well, I think I was doing more of the yoga than you think. It's just,
okay. All right.
I didn't know you guys were observing that.
That's the only part of practice we want.
I think you're always adding tricks to try to stay healthy. And then not only adding tricks physically, but mentally. I think as you grow older, you have to, skill set level on the field has to continue to improve. Naturally, everything you're doing off the field is to maintain your athleticism, but you're also having things in your bag on the field based on experience, so you have that edge. For me, trying to make sure I stay healthy is a big deal, and I have looked at everything, whether it comes to stretching, which I do more than you think. Relative, you might not believe that after the yoga session.
I think you just think that's kind of like for like beginners yoga out there. You probably do a little hot yoga.
No, I do believe in flexibility and stretching, and I do a lot of work like that. But adding all that, the whole entire picture is something I've really tried to work on to make sure I'm out there.
We talked about you being the longest tenured member of this team now that Jason Witten is retired. Des Bryant's been released. A lot of people look at that as the Cowboys face a real leadership void. I'm wondering if you see that as a leadership opportunity for you to take on that role more for the entire team rather than just the defense.
Absolutely. Having Jason Witten leave is tough for us because he was such an unbelievable leader and a guy that we look to. Any situation that came up, we all worked together to try to figure it out, but at the end of the day we said, wait, how are we going to handle this situation? We have a great group of guys that he's passed leadership down, and I feel like I'm one of those guys, and now it's time for me to step up, but also guys like Dak, Zeke, Zach Martin, Ty Crawford. I mean, we have a lot of leaders ready to step into that.
It seemed like the opportunity you had to really demonstrate that in a very practical way early in camp was the way you handled what Des said. He obviously criticized several people, yourself included. How did you want to handle that? And based on how you did handle it, how have your teammates expressed their thoughts on your involvement?
Well, like any situation, situations come up and you have to handle them straight on. For me as a leader, I want to keep the focus on football. I want to make sure we're coming in, we're focused on football every single day. We're working together as a group to accomplish this common goal. So ultimately, that's what I'm trying to do. I want to win the championship with guys I love and care about, and I want to do everything possible to be a leader to do that. And so when I'm speaking, whenever I'm doing it, I'm always thinking about my teammates and thinking about this team and that goal.
I mean, the only thing I would have done differently, Sean, I would have embraced the name Ken Stabler. It worked for him. I would have just gone with it. Like maybe he got a snake tattoo, but anyway, enough about me. So when you look at you got a new linebackers coach, a new secondary coach, some youthful guys in there with a rookie first round pick. What is what are some differences you see? Hitchens is gone now. What is this linebacker room been like? Especially all we hear about Jalen looking better and better.
Yeah, I think our room is incredible. A lot of talent, a lot of guys who have played some football. Like you said, but Jalen's done an unbelievable job. I mean, how he was able to come back from his injury, play last year. I've said this a bunch of times. It's historic. That type of injury he had. He got better every game, and really by the end of the year was playing unbelievable. And this year you can see the progression he's making. Leighton coming in like he has, and how hard he works, how much he knows of the defense already, and the type of athlete he is. It's been a fun group to work with. New coach, Coach Bloom, has been unbelievable. So we have a great room that I love working with, even 9 years in.
A lot of people in the league questioned the Cowboys taking Jalen Smith in the second round like they did. And obviously, there were times early on last year he struggled. I mean, you're trying to play in the NFL for the first time in your life with drop foot and a brace and run with athletes that are as good as there is in the world. And he was exploited in some of those situations. Do you see this as a guy who can still achieve greatness at his position in the NFL?
I think absolutely he is on his way to achieving greatness. I think, first thing, anybody who's played, when I was a rookie, the first time you're playing in the NFL, everybody has issues that they struggle with. It doesn't matter health, it doesn't matter. It's a tough transition. So for him to be able to do that, and then also dealing with some of the issues he had with his foot and with his injury, it was incredible how he handled it. And he made a lot of plays, and as the year went on, he made more and more plays. So I'm telling you, he is on his way to being. It's going to be historic what he's going to do.
This rookie, Van Der Esch, what have you seen from him now that you've gotten him into camp and been with him on more of a daily basis? How willing is this guy? How his kind of want-to factor? Where is all that, and where do you see his career going?
It's as high as it could be. I mean, he's extremely conscientious, always trying to learn, always trying to listen. Plays extremely hard on the field, practices the right way. I mean, every box when it comes to the type of character you want, he checks that. And then when you pair that with his size and athleticism, he's another guy who I think has an extremely bright future too. Do
you think Wolf Hunter is a good nickname, and are you like me bothered by the fact that he has hunted and killed wolves? I thought they were on the endangered species list, perhaps because of him.
Yeah. I don't think they are. I think I love the name. I think that's his natural state. I mean, he's a guy. His story is amazing, where he grew up, and I didn't realize till last week that's the first NFL game he had been in. Yeah, which was
played six-man football.
Played six-man football, and so for him to, like I said, to handle himself like he has, I think that's an appropriate nickname, and I think it's going to catch on.
What about another? Talk about
Not if I could do anything about it.
We talked about Jalen Smith and his redemption story, and it comes in a different light than this one. But what's your take on Randy Gregory? I mean, a lot of people think that Cowboys shouldn't be, investing in these sort of players and standing by them. But we just talked to him; he's obviously excited. He thinks he's resolved a lot of his personal issues. What are your expectations for him?
Extremely high. I mean, Randy, from the start, we've always loved Randy. He's a great guy, and he had issues. And like anything, he addressed those. He faced them head on. He spent time doing everything he could to get healthy and to get back. And to see him to be able to accomplish that is an inspiration to us. You look at him out here, I mean, the first day he came back, you saw him just doing those get-off drills. I mean, it's his get-off and his athleticism is something different, his flexibility. And even the small time he's been here, he's already making plays. And he hasn't played in 2 years?
Right, pretty much.
He can have a huge impact. And I'm praying that, he continues on the path he is because he deserves it.
My last question, because Joe Trahan's running the stopwatch on us over here, and we only have 10 minutes, and we're about exhausted our time is. What concerns do you have about the NFL's new helmet rule? as it's being applied in games and the effect it may have on the quality of football and so forth?
You know, I think we're all hoping it's just a role that's not grid, that can be defined, and really allows us to play fast. You know, as a defensive guy, the last thing you want to do is be thinking how you're hitting someone when you're hitting them. You want to work on the technique of keeping your head up, and I understand the role of trying to keep people healthy, which is great. But you know, at the end of the day, it's a violent game, it's a physical game, and you know they're gonna have to find that balance of allowing us to play and not making it overboard. And I think they will find that.
This is my third to last question. Is there anybody that has emerged, obviously on the offensive side of the ball? Dak seems to be a big time leader. Mm-hmm. Anybody, whether on defense or offense, that has sort of surprised you a little bit about coming into camp and really taking on a pretty strong leadership role, helping you in that area?
Well, at first, I'd say not a surprise, but the offensive line, the way they lead, the standard they set with their work ethic in the offseason, and now all those guys have stepped up. And Zeke is a guy who has just been unbelievable with his leadership, his work ethic in the offseason. He's a guy from day one that the whole team has rallied around. He has that type of personality to be a leader. So that's a guy, I think, who was moving into that role who is going to do an unbelievable job with it.
Well, we really appreciate it.
10 minutes and 47 seconds, Joe Trahan.
That's
we owe you a minute.
I've never.
50 seconds of bad answers.
We didn't start until the first good answer.
Is there anything that you would wish we had asked?
No.
That's always the worst question you could ask an athlete.
Exactly. No. Hey, we appreciate it. It is Sean Lee from Oxnard, from a beautiful tent here in the VIP area. Practice in his final week. Last thing I'll say, are you cool now with, by the way, sitting out? Like, you missed 8 or 9 like full practices, not the whole practices, but not the full thing. Or if you, as you're 32 though, are you at least kind of embracing that? You were always a guy who was pissed off if you weren't playing, But I mean, do you kind of understand the wisdom of that at least a little bit more now?
I understand it, and you think you're cool with it. You get the plan. I get it, and then you get out to practice, and you're not cool with it. When you see your guys going through practice, grinding, you want to be part of that shared sacrifice. There will never be a way around not being angry when you get out and when you love playing football. So I'm always going to have issues with it. I understand it, but sometimes dealing with that frustration can be tough for me.
Which is the reason Jason Garrett said yesterday they have about 15 conversations a day with Sean Lee about his practice schedule for the week.
Yeah.
That is true. I mean, it's like a plan, and then I would try to ramp it up and try to fight them, and then they pull me back.
All right, there he is, Sean Lee, media darling, Cowboys. Yes. And there was with Sean Lee earlier today, a man who he loves to drop some expletives on you on the field, but off the field. When doing these interviews, very, very thoughtful, and enjoyed our time with him. And boy, always enjoy. I think Sean made it clear today. He made the legendary voice of the Cowboys, Brad Sham, wait on him and said, "I want to do Doomsday first." And to me, Ed, that's an important thing and a good decision by Sean.
He shows tremendous judgment in almost every aspect of his football life, and did so yet again today. People who ask why the Cowboys would not take a receiver in the first round of the draft when they let go of Dez Bryant. I think they drafted Leighton Vander Esch for a lot of reasons. One of them is that they're 1-8 the last 3 years when Sean Lee's not on the field. It's really been kind of shocking how futile they are on defense when he's not in the game. During their 3-game losing streak last year when Lee was injured, they allowed 1,234 yards and 92 points. That's literally 100 more yards and 10 more points per game than their season averages without Sean Lee. So it would seem like now they've protected themselves against that being an issue of that magnitude going forward.
Yeah, I mean, in some sense, you could say one of the most valuable players in the league, because you can certainly back that up with the numbers and what that shows. And it was fun having Sean on. I would say this, Ed. I remember Bill Parcells, who we both covered back with the Cowboys starting in 2003. One of the things he always talked about was not letting certain positions, one position, hold you hostage. It happened to him actually in the kicking position at one point, and I think that was the context he was talking about. It's happened with the Cowboys when Sean Lee goes out. It also happened when the left tackle Tyron Smith went out, and one of the reasons teams are there year in, year out, and one of the reasons a team, like New England is there is because when they do lose certain players, other teams can step up. The Eagles you could make that case in a huge way because they lost several players throughout the season, but that one loss, or they lost a left tackle.
And they lost a quarterback. A quarterback who might have been the MVP of the season in his first year as a full-time starter goes down. They lost Darren Sproles. They lost Jordan Hicks at linebacker. Their performance with all the injuries and adversity they faced and overcame and won it all against the team, the dynasty of this decade in football, really allowed there to be no excuses for guys like Jason Garrett when it comes to, hey, my record pretty much is determined by injuries and suspensions. And the Cowboys are going to start this year with yet another suspension.
Correct.
David Irving. We didn't talk to Sean Lee about that. But I think, you listen to Sean Lee, he obviously has a very high opinion of what Randy Gregory can still achieve. He said he thinks that Jalen Smith is on his way to achieving greatness. Thinks an awful lot of Van Der Esch, who he is mentoring right now. So I think defensively the Cowboys have a lot of good pieces in place if that front four can continue to perform as it has so far.
I agree with you. And Ed, one of the other things that took place this morning, in fact, as we sit here on, what is today, Ed? Monday. Boy, you lose track with the weather so pretty out here.
Their last full week out here. They'll be back at the Star next week.
It is Monday, and Randy Gregory spoke to the media, and he was somewhat reserved. Randy can be kind of a gregarious fella. I find him an engaging sort, and today he talked about his comeback with the Cowboys, and he was able to join the team. We talked about it yesterday in some of the live practices. Let's hear from Randy Gregory, finally back with the Cowboys, and as Jerry Jones said, he believes he'll be ready to contribute by week 1.
Is there a time, Randy, where you didn't think you'd be back?
I'm being honest, yeah. I think at my lowest point, I felt that way. Obviously knew there was a chance that I would play again if I did the right things, but just looking at everything that was mapped out as far as what I needed to do and what I had going on in my life at the time, it was hard for me to say that I really thought I was going to be back.
What was the lowest point? Yeah. What was the lowest point?
I can't give you an exact date or anything, but there was a couple times in the last 2 years at least, and even last year where I had a lot going on in my personal life. I had a lot going on back at home with my parents, things with the team, obviously, drug program, just everything career-wise. And there was just a lot that I had going on mentally, physically, and just trying to get myself back to baseline so I can continue on my path.
So what finally worked that you were able to get clean, and what's your plan once you get back to Dallas for staying clean?
Well, I got a good schedule, like I said before. Got around the right people. Therapy always has helped, but just being consistent with that. Healthy dose of medication, and then just being able to realize what I have on my plate, my priorities, and being happy, not only with what I'm doing, but with myself internally, has been like the biggest, I think.
Randy, what was the point where you knew you had a chance to get back? What was that moment like?
I mean, there were little things that happened over the course of the year and a half that, gave me indication that I'd be back, where I had a chance. I think, obviously, working with my attorney, Daniel Moskowitz, has been big. He's done a lot of work behind the scenes that people don't know about that has made it a lot easier as far as my transition from being in the program and then being in compliance with some of the things they wanted over the course of the time I've been out, and then obviously getting back in and having a plan as far as aftercare employees.
How are you feeling about what you're doing out there right now? I know it's only been a few practices you've got a chance to get, but how are you feeling about what you're doing?
I feel good. I think it's been baby steps, which was the big question is, coming in, what was I going to do from the jump? And I think the coaches and the strength staff and the training staff did a good job as far as, developing a plan, what I'm going to do day to day. And then obviously being out here, finally getting some reps against, live players and doing individual things like that. I think it's been good as far as getting my feet under me. It's kind of different, pushing weight in the weight room compared to being out in the field and pushing somebody that's pushing against you. So that's been kind of different, but it is kind of like riding a bike because I am used to it. I've done it for a long time. That a lot of those things that I think I was good at before, I never really lost, and a lot of things that I was working on before, and I worked on in the offseason, I'm working on now, picking up a lot quicker now that I'm out there with other players.
What does this say about the team that they've stuck with you?
I think they believe in me. I think they, first and foremost, they like me as not only a player but a person. And then, I've always tried to do the right thing. I know I always haven't, but I've tried. And, I think they realize I was a person in need and sticking by me throughout that tough part. And even now, it's been real important for me to get back, and I think it's worked. So, I've had a lot of support from players all the way down the list, coaches, obviously the Jones family, and even, fans out there and about. Had a lot of support, so that's been, real big as far as me getting back.
Randy, you have tried to do the right thing. The Cowboys believe that. What do you think caused those problems? Was it bipolar? Was it something else? What was the root of the problem? Did they diagnose you with bipolar?
I think they've diagnosed me with a lot of things. At this point, I can't really say, what I believe is right and what's wrong. I do trust a doctor's opinion over mine, but I also understand that there's a lot of different things you can do throughout that process to make life easier for yourself. And a lot of those things I was putting in front of myself, I was self-sabotaging. And I had to realize that and grow up a little bit, like I said. And I think I have. I can't really address the bipolar thing. I think that's kind of a private matter, but anybody that deals with what I have to deal with and have gone through what I've gone through and understand the process of what I've been through, I think can understand that there's obviously a mental aspect to it, along with emotional.
Did marijuana help manage that?
Guys, that's what you were saying too. I mean, you talk about going through therapy, and not just athletes. A lot of people don't want to talk about mental health issues. There's a stigma with it. It's starting to break down. But do you recognize that's where you need to focus? And I know you said before you don't want to be known as a pothead. There's a lot else. Yeah. There's other stuff going on.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it. I think the stigma, it obviously what I've been known to get in trouble for is, the marijuana issue, the substance abuse. So that's what's going to stick to the media and the fans and things like that. And that's fine. But I just would like everyone to realize that there is more to it, and there is a stigma behind it. And it's not just, somebody walking around carelessly doing what they want, like I said, there's obviously a mental aspect to it that plays a big part in it for me, that I've had to try to figure out. And I think the moment I took a more serious approach to that with my therapy, and the more people around me understood what I was going through mentally, I think made it a lot easier for me to get right.
And there he is, Randy Gregory, speaking for the first time in quite a while out here with the Cowboys. Good to see him. Ed, you had it documented, some of his extreme weight changes and where he was all the way down. I believe you had him at one point at 198, which is just unbelievable for a guy
NFL player of
an
any size.
defensive end. I mean, that's just crazy. Now he appears to be up around
248. They said
248 at this point. Looks good. Today I thought was somewhat reserved in his comments, but it's obvious. One of the things I think he likes to get across, or he's trying to get across, he's not ready to talk about his mental health issues and be real public with it. But I do think he wants people to know that it's more about, hey, I have substance abuse or marijuana issues. Those may be one and the same, but I think he's letting us know he has other issues, but he's just not quite ready to reveal exactly what those are, although it's been widely reported that he is bipolar.
Well, he kept avoiding that specific question, which was, would he concede that he's been diagnosed as having bipolar disorder? He did acknowledge that he remains on some kind of medication, and that and continuing these treatments and having a sober partner, they call it, that the Cowboys have. I don't think this is Pac-Man's bodyguard, but it's somebody who's going to be living with and spending all of every day throughout this season with Randy Gregory. The Browns did that to a certain extent with Josh Gordon through the season, and then obviously he had more issues after the season. But the Cowboys have a plan in place, it seems. It's unusual that a player gets to meet directly with NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell in the reinstatement process as Gregory did, and one of the reasons for that was one of the members of his vast team that he has trying to keep him to the point where he's eligible to play every week for the Cowboys is Mike Ornstein, longtime assistant with Al Davis, with Sean Payton when the Saints won the Super Bowl. He's kind of become Jerry's guy as far as managing this group of people around Randy Gregory, and not just Gregory, but because of their success with Gregory, David Irving now too. Now, these are two different people with two different personalities. Gregory's, from my understanding, a much more intelligent guy. His Wonderlic score coming out in the draft was far higher than Irving's. And he's the kind of guy that when you're confrontational with him or you express disappointment in him, he feels a sense of failure and disappointment himself. Whereas Irving, it's hard to grab a guy that big, by the throat and say, hey, you need to do this and that. And he's a little more contentious in that way, just from a personality standpoint. Doesn't mean he's not as committed to trying to reach the point that Gregory has right now. And we can't say that Randy Gregory is going to play all season and he's going to be Lawrence Taylor on the football field. I do think that a sense I got today from talking to people here is that Jason Garrett was more on board with this Randy Gregory pick in the second round than most people think. I think there's this perception that in most of these cases with these troubled players, and everybody was aware in the league that he had failed multiple drug tests in Nebraska, failed one at the scouting combine. But I think Jason Garrett was much more on board than most people think. This wasn't entirely a Jerry Jones decision, that the Cowboys actually had him rated as the best pass rusher in his draft class. He was there at the bottom of the second round. They considered it great value. They thought they had structure around him that could allow him to succeed. And one of the interesting things, and I've heard this for a long time, the Cowboys had a plan in place themselves that they developed for this player. He was responding well to it. And I think they would claim, all things being disclosed, that the NFL then said their program didn't meet the NFL's requirements and they had to abide by the NFL's plan for players such as this. And Gregory did not respond as favorably to that as he had with the Cowboys put in place.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that is fascinating stuff. This conversation today reminded me, Ed, of a story. I was interviewing Charles Haley, who you covered with the Cowboys many years ago, and Charles has been very public about his mental health issues and dealing with bipolar, But Charles at one point was sitting there. We were doing an interview with him at Radio Row, and he was trying to think of a condition that he had, and he couldn't think. And so I thought, in my mind, I helpfully said, schizophrenia? And to which Charles said, he said, about 15 or 20 years ago, I would have slapped your face off your head. I was just trying to be helpful. But it is interesting with guys like Charles Haley. Now, Charles has been very critical of the Cowboys at times.
Yep.
And he comes in and out the door, and sometimes they let him out there, and sometimes I think they're less likely to want him around. In some ways, I think he could probably be really good for Randy Gregory, having gone through a lot of that.
Not only, if you believe the Cowboys, was their plan for him disallowed by the NFL, But then I think they showed tremendously poor judgment in his rookie year, putting him in a room, in a defensive meeting room with Greg Hardy.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of guy you need influencing a young player who already has off-the-field issues. That was a bad match, and I think that was clearly the result of the Cowboys feeling like, and I'll say it, specifically Jerry Jones feeling like, hey, we're 1 or 2 players away. If we can get a great pass rusher, we can go win it all. And he was willing to do whatever it took to endure whatever criticism there was going to be of taking a guy like Greg Hardy, and he probably didn't even think about the damage it could do to a young player, a young impressionable player like Randy Gregory.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and good to see him appearing to be on the right track.
And again,
as addicts know, you're never totally over this
and that's
stuff.
the point I think I want to make, is that I've talked to people who are close to Gregory to this point in his career who are not involved with him right now. So maybe you can argue, well, they have reason to be critical of him. But there are people in the group that were with him before who have gone through this process and seen him fail drug tests and miss 30 out of 32 games because he's suspended, who don't think that the Cowboys can expect more than a month to pass by before he's going to fail a drug test again.
Yeah.
I mean, he's subject to 10 random drug tests per year now. That's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, it'd be a challenge for any of us.
Not for me.
10. Well, they could. I think if they checked for fish tacos, you'd be in trouble.
Is that a banned substance now? I'll have to purge that from my system.
Exactly.
I have some ideas on how to do that.
Yeah. Couple of takeaways. I want to finish this camp up, and of course, we'll be here for the afternoon practice, and we'll continue to bring you some interviews as we go. Boy, it's been good to see you interact, and we both had some nice interaction with Dak. I think Dak will probably want to sit down with us again soon, and he certainly indicated that, at least with his body language, and he's always dapping you up and that kind of thing. I would say my biggest takeaways from out here is that there is a sense, I don't feel like there's any sense of panic with the receivers. I kind of wondered if we'd get out here and they'd be like, oh my gosh, we literally are going into a season with no frontline receivers. Now they may get in the season and go, this is not working, but there's a belief.
They might admit that to themselves. They won't say it publicly.
No, they won't.
Sure.
But I'm saying what we've observed. There's a youngster by the name of Lance Lenore who does some nice things. I mean, one of the things that people kind of forget about is that, and again, Drew Brees isn't walking through that door. Sean Payton's not calling plays here. But while they've had some great receivers along the way, the Saints, Colston was a really good receiver, but for a lot of that period of time when they were putting up enormous numbers, they just had 4 or 5 really good guys. They didn't always have. Meacham's kind of bottomed out in the NFL, or
he's a first-round pick.
He was a first-round pick, but he had bottomed out with the Chargers. He ends up there. He puts up nice numbers. So there are teams that have sort of been able to do it without just all frontline type guys, and that comes back to this point. Tavon Austin is one of the stars of this camp, and I say star of the camp. Even the off-the-field stuff too. They seem to really be incredibly impressed on the leadership traits that he shows, the chip on his shoulder, and there's a belief that he's ready to make a huge contribution to this team. And when you give up a 6th-round pick for somebody like that, you'd be lying if you said right then, we think Tavon's going to come in here and light the NFL on fire. Now that they've seen him and seen kind of how he interacts with his teammates and everything, I think they're pretty excited about it.
Anytime you mention a receiver and say he has Michael Irvin qualities like Jerry did yesterday in terms of the energy that he brings to the team, that's some pretty high praise. Now, Jerry is known for his hyperbole, and I don't know that I would say, based on what I've seen, that Tavon Austin brings Michael Irvin energy. But yeah, I think it speaks to the favorable impression that they have of a guy that maybe we kind of just thought, well, he's just one of a number of guys out there. They're really going to rely on Allen Hurns more. I think Michael Gallup, their 3rd-round pick, is going to make a big contribution as a rookie. And one of the interesting things we got out of the conversation with Scott Linehan, the offensive coordinator, yesterday was, we can protect him because so many of the other guys are multidimensional in terms of where they can line up, that we can just teach a guy like Gallup, 1 or 2 things early on, and he can still make a big contribution because we can move the other people around him. So I think that's a pretty solid concept.
Can I say this one thing that strikes me about that? I think Sanjay Lal's been upset at times. Will McClay, the personnel guy, I believe even Scott Linehan, they've had to become very protective of what they say about Dez because everything they say sort of gets blown up and it's viewed, oh my gosh, they said something negative about Dez, whether they mean to or not. Isn't it interesting, though, when you hear all this? I kind of asked that of Scott Linehan. It's like if you kind of thought you could be more multiple and be tougher to defend by moving a bunch of guys around, why would you wait this long?
I don't know.
Why are we doing this? Why are we talking about this right now? And it keeps coming back to Dez. I mean, it's kind of like they let sort of one player, and I don't even think this was all Dez's fault. I think some of this was coaching. They made the offense or the passing attack so much about him, and then Witten to a certain extent, that it was like they didn't really try to do any stuff. And I don't know how much of that was Dez and his maybe limited route running skills, and how much of their just lack of attention to that kind of thing.
I think a significant portion of it was Dez's limitations, just mentally, in knowing what to do from a variety of different positions. We've all heard that criticism of him. But I don't understand why, until now, we haven't seen them use a lot of different, route combinations, flood different sides of the field. How can Cole Beasley production go to the level it reached last year? That's ridiculous. They've got to figure out a way to get him involved on a regular basis. He's one of the great mismatch players that they have, and I think they'll do that with him. And I think, they're going to get Ezekiel Elliott more involved in the passing game. We're going to see some times when Tavon Austin's going to line up in the backfield, even though we have only seen it a couple different times here. I think they're going to show more imagination on offense, and then they just have to be able to execute better. And one of the things, we all remember the Atlanta game was their downfall last year when they went without Tyron Smith.
Correct.
And they didn't have Zeke Elliott, and they put Chaz Green in there, and they allowed 8 sacks, and Dak Prescott was never the same quarterback again after that experience. The other day, I happened to notice that there was a play where Connor Williams, the left guard, the new member of the starting offensive line, a rookie left guard who's changing positions. At Texas, he was a tackle. Now he's playing guard for the Cowboys with the number ones. Almost certain to start against Carolina. Just totally missed his block, and there was immediate inside pressure on Dak from the backside. The next play, Scott Linehan had Ezekiel Elliott over there, chip block on that. Anybody coming free on the left side. So that was a better adjustment than we saw in an entire Atlanta game.
A lot quicker.
So hopefully the coaches learn from that experience.
Any other big takeaway other than those things we just talked about? Anything else that jumped out at you, either about maybe on the defensive side of the ball, secondary, or we talked about the linebackers? Anything else jump out at you?
I just think, Chris Richard coming in from the Seahawks and being in charge of the passing defense.
Wears those cleats.
Wears cleats occasionally out here. He's very involved. He's coaching these guys on every rep. He's got he's got Byron Jones back at corner, where I think obviously that's where they expected him to play. That's why they drafted him in the first round, was to play corner. And he seems more comfortable at that position. And they're up and they're challenging people at the line of scrimmage in a way we have never seen before. It's uncommon in a Rod Marinelli defense to have your corners be physical at the line of scrimmage, but that's what we're seeing from this group, and I think that's a good approach too.
By the way, let's call him what the players are calling him, Shard.
Shard?
Yeah, I like that. Shard.
Oh, he's been on here. We're
Chris Richard. We like him. We saw him after he was very upset with a particular player, and then later that player got in some off-the-field trouble. It could have been related.
Was it
Marquez White,
yeah,
I believe, former Florida State basketball
there were
player.
Some charges entered into the equation.
Oh, yeah, he was accused of brandishing a gun.
Not in the argument with Chris Richard, but at some other point he was accused of brandishing a gun.
At the Doomsday podcast that day. No, he was out on the road, out on there, and boy, these guys need to watch what they out in Frisco. We've had Terrence Williams in a wreck out there. We had Zeke doing some stuff. He got in a wreck out there in Frisco, and then Marquez White. We gotta watch that, Ed.
A lot of people getting wrecks out in Frisco.
Yeah, we've got to watch the traffic out there. Ed, it's been a wonderful time. I thought Frito did a good job out here. Frito Nation Productions. I mean, coming out here in Southern California, and responsible for our sound. People have been texting me and tweeting, "Hey, you guys sound incredible," and I think that's a big thing. And Ed, let's thank the auto lease lady. Have you heard of Marie?
I've heard of her. I've never met her. I'm yet to meet her.
You need to. On Facebook, one of the easy ways to find her is Auto Lease Lady. Go to the Auto Lease Lady. She calls herself the Auto Lease Lady. One reason women and men love using her, but women sometimes, Ed, don't love going into dealerships and going through all that. I don't know if you heard this.
I think women are capable of anything.
I think they are. But I'm just saying it's a male-dominated. Yeah.
There's nothing male-dominated.
No, there are a few industries.
This podcast is male-dominated. That's about it.
No, they still sports writing. There's a lot of male-dominated.
I'll stay out of your way.
I know. Please, some of your tweets have gotten us all. But anyway, the auto lease lady with Marie. Check her out, and Facebook's a great way to do that. The Auto Lease Lady, and she's on Twitter. You can find her on Auto Lease Lady there. Marie does an incredible job, and I don't know if you and Frito have seen my wife's new 2018 Honda Pilot. Whoa.
No, I think you've done a wonderful job keeping us from seeing the free
any
car
of them. No, Ed, there's nothing free in this life, sir, and I will continue to talk about these things that you guys don't have. No, I owe you some razors, and I will give you guys a ride in the 2018 Honda Pilot. Call up Marie, and we'd love to do that. It's been great. Ed, any final thoughts from out here?
I thought we just did that segment, but I really don't have any more final thoughts.
Right,
My final thought is that I'm glad we were able to come out here and interact with these guys and get in front of them and have the credibility with this group of players and coaches that we can do more great shows throughout the course of this season.
Yeah, huge credibility with this show, and for Frito, for Ed, for the entire Doomsday podcast, I want to say good night, everybody.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.